The following is a special presentation of ESPN on ABC. During the late 1960s in Northeast Pennsylvania, couples from all over visited the Pocono Mountains, known as the honeymoon capital of the world. But in 1971, it was a different kind of love triangle that made international news.
We are off and racing in the Pocono 500.
As the Pocono Raceway, the one-of-a-kind tricky triangle, hosted its first race. Today, IndyCar returns after a 24-year hiatus. Some say that time makes the heart grow fonder, with some of the highest speeds on the circuit and 3 distinctly challenging corners. Hearts will definitely pound harder. Pocono's unique 2.5-mile tri-oval will force drivers to approach each corner differently or not come out of the corner at all. One driver knows this track better than most. Growing up a piston throw from the track in nearby Nazareth, Marco Andretti has family history with the tricky triangle.
Mario Andretti has won that Pocono.
With less than 60 points separating Andretti from the points leader, Helio Castroneves, and less than 80 separating the top 5, drivers will need to attack this geometric wonder with cautious tenacity, or more than hearts will be broken.
And we are in the rolling hills of Northeast Pennsylvania in Long Pond for race number 11 of the 2013 IndyCar season. Welcome to the IndyCar Series at Pocono. Hello again, everybody. I'm Marty Reed, and all of us hope you are having a great 4th of July weekend, and thank you for spending part of your holiday with us. It has been 24 years since IndyCars have run this 2.5-mile oval, the same length as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but only 3 turns and 2 very long straightaways. And if you're looking for speed, we've got it. Every car except 3 in qualifying broke the old track record of 2:11. Marco Andretti topped out at 2:21.2. But as Rick DeBrule reports, a few drivers learned it can be a bit difficult to navigate the tricky triangle.
Well, Marty, the tricky triangle caused problems for a couple of drivers yesterday. Alex Tagliani, one of those. First, he hits the outer wall during qualifying, then bounces off and hits the inner wall. Unfortunately, that guy's had no luck this year. Team had to work hard to repair that car, get it back in the race. And then E.J. Visa, one of the Andretti cars during qualifying, he hits the outer wall. They decided to switch to a backup. As a result, the Andretti squad had to work hard to get them ready. But at least the Andretti folks knew that while that car had problems, their other 3 cars own the front row. And this guy right here, Marco Andretti, on the pole. Just like his, well, let's see, grandfather did in '87, your father did in '86. You own this track. Did they teach you anything? Have they given you any tips?
That was the year I was born, man. I mean, race cars are still race cars, but you know, we pretty much have to learn at this level of the sport on our own. Obviously, there's still a lot to be gained having them around, but yeah, I mean, we'll give them the credit. How's that?
Yeah, all right. And they only have 1 Andretti victory here. What do you think, guys? 1 more Andretti victory today? They're rooting for him. Once again, Marco Andretti hoping to make another Andretti victory here. Vince.
Standing with one of the favorites of today's race, Tony Kanaan, and he is the only driver that has a shot at the Fuzzies Triple Crown. Of course, that's Indianapolis, Pocono, and California. Now, when we talked in Victory Lane at Indianapolis, that secured that you had a shot at the Triple Crown. This is the second jewel. What's your chances today?
I think we have a pretty good chance, Vince. We work a lot on the race car. It's a tricky place. They don't call it tricky triangle for nothing. So it's going to be a tough race, but we have a chance.
What makes it so difficult?
Well, the speeds are much higher. If you remember, we did Emerson's record here was a 2:11. We did a 2:21, and the way our cars are, it's tough to keep it in the draft and make a pass because the ratio of the corners are so long. So it's going to be like a cat and mouse game, waiting for somebody to have a little hiccup, and then you make a pass.
Any extra in your mind knowing that you've got a shot at a $250,000 bonus with a win today?
My mechanics remind me that this morning. They get a big chunk of the prize money. So, of course, we want to do it. I've seen the trophy for the Triple Crown, and obviously I'm the only one that can do that, so we're going to go for it.
Keep an eye on the 11 today. Tony Kanaan. Jamie?
Well, between these 2 Andretti Autosport drivers, they have 5 wins. Now, this is your guys' first time ever racing at this track. How did you and your teammates get up to speed so quickly, Ryan?
We just love this place. I mean, we've had a blast since the first laps here, and you know, the wind conditions can really mess with you, kind of play tricks on your setup. But we've loved it. We've been running together in traffic a lot, which really helps. You know, when you have a team like we do, and we always cooperate, always work together. We've been well prepared for running in traffic and also for qualifying, like you saw yesterday. So really happy to get all three of the 4 Andretti cars on the front row, and hopefully today that #1 DHL Chevy will be up front all day.
And eating ice cream together at night helps you guys as teammates. Now, you got your first oval win just 2 weeks ago, but now we're here at a tricky triangle. What are some of the challenges today?
Yeah, this place is a lot different than Iowa, you know, and tricky triangle, that's not a marketing ploy. That's an earned name, because this place is really tough. But, you know, as Ryan said, the team's done an incredible job, and it's the Andretti's backyard, which just makes it that much more special, you know. And we just want to put on a good show today for the fans. It looks like they've come out in droves, which is awesome. And, you know, he wants the DHL Chevy in victory lane. I wouldn't mind the GoDaddy car in victory lane, but frankly, if the RC Cola car ends up in victory lane, I don't think any of us are going to be upset by that either.
All right, James Hinchcliffe, Ryan Hunter race starting on the front row because it's 3 wide today. Marty?
That's right, a 3 wide start, and you heard James mention the triangle. Well, the feeling around here in northeastern Pennsylvania is, who needs 4 turns?
An oval's an oval, you say. 4 turns and on your way. But at Pocono, we change it up. Because the triangle's not just for Cup. And 3 tricky turns is enough to make sure you know your stuff. It's been 24 long years since we've come to Long Pond. The last time we were here, it was the most talented that found victory. Names like Sullivan, Mears, Rahal, and Andretti. How will history repeat itself?
The winners is a who's who of IndyCar royalty. AJ Foyt has won this event 4 times. Rick Mears right behind him with 3. There you see Al Unser. Danny Sullivan won the last one back in 1989. And there's Mark Donohue, the first winner. And Johnny Rutherford, well, we should give congratulations to Johnny and wife Betty. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary today. And there's also the list as Bobby Rahal comes back after winning in 1988 to be the car owner of Graham Rahal's number 15. Those are the legends of our sport. Now, let's salute the heroes of our country, the men and women who serve in our armed forces. Let's go down trackside.
Here to sing our national anthem, former contestant on The Voice from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Christian Porter, being assisted by Roger Rominski, signer from Scranton School of the Deaf.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, now for the most famous words in motorsports, a custom that originated at the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. Here to give the command, please welcome once again, Mr. Fuzzy Zoller.
Drivers, start those engines!
So as the engines come to life, we come topside and introduce Eddie Cheever and Scott Goodyear. And gentlemen, our last race together here, but for this season, let's talk about the track here, because you guys went around this and it was an experience, wasn't it?
The first thing that comes to your mind is this place is enormous, and with that enormous comes a lot of speed. It is quick.
It's got turns almost like a small oval, Eddie, but actually speeds of a place like Indianapolis. You can see 152 degrees radius there, and that 14-degree banking reminds me of, they say, the old Trenton track. So that's sort of interesting. This run here down to turn 2, look at the speeds, up to 218 miles an hour. Modeled after Indianapolis with an 8-degree banking. You have to get a good run down to turn 3, and 3 is important because you need that run going on to the front stretch, which is the fastest section. So if you get out of that track, turn there, down to turn 3, and very special.
I love how Tony Kanaan describes this corner. He calls it Milwaukee on steroids, and it's something that, like Scott said, you have to get the balance right, because it is probably the biggest straightaway I've ever seen, and definitely the biggest straightaway on this track.
And we'll superimpose the Indianapolis Motor Speedway over top of Pocono, give you an idea just how these two shape up and how massive this place truly is. All right, the cars are fired. We're waiting for them to pull out onto the track. We'll get the pace laps in. When we come back, we go green. Pocono.
ESPN's coverage of the Pocono IndyCar 400 on ABC. Brought to you by Verizon, official wireless partner of the IZOD IndyCar Series.
Okay. Welcome back to Pocono Raceway. The car's out on the first pace lap as we are getting ready to go green for the first time in 24 years here at the Tricky Triangle. And there is turn number 3. And this is James Rebhorn on the right. He's an actor in over 100 television shows, feature films, and plays. He was born in Philadelphia, and he took a ride of a lifetime in the IZOD 2-seater driven by Mario Andretti. If you want to get a chance to win that ride, all you have to do is enter at shophonda.com. I think James is having a good time out there with Mario. There they are. Okay, let's set our starting grid, and you heard Jamie Little mention it, 3 wide, just like we do at Indianapolis. They'll do it again at the last of the Triple Crown races in Fontana later this year. And you can see the first 4 roads there, and then let's move on down through the field, as there's quite a few big names in the back of the field. In the middle of row 6, Scott Dixon, Dario Franchitti in the middle of row 7. Let's check in on our onboards. Ryan Briscoe has been racing all weekend up at Lime Rock. This is the first time he's been in the car here since the test session. He's running the National Guard onboard car. Graham Rahal in the number 15. He's got the Honda onboard camera. The 83 of Charles Kimball in the Novo Nordisk onboard. Points leader Elio Castroneves with the Firestone onboard camera. His lead just 9 markers. Our Indy 500 winner Tony Kanaan, he's got the Verizon onboard. And remember, you can get live streaming of in-car cameras on the IndyCar 13 mobile app, and that is only from Verizon. Let's move up to the front row. James Hinchcliffe, our winner at Iowa. He's got the GoDaddy onboard camera. And last but not least, our pole sitter, Marco Andretti, United Fiber and Data onboard camera. Let's get the last update from pit lane. Jamie Little, you're up.
Well, Marty, although this is the first Pocono IndyCar race for every single driver in the field, the reality is history runs deep for IndyCar racing right here, especially for the man over my shoulder. Roger Penske got his first win as a team owner right here back in 1971. He went on to earn 6 more victories, including the final IndyCar race right here in 1989. Rick DeBrule?
Well, Jamie, Ed Carpenter may be the oval master, but as we've talked about, this is an oval with a twist, and he had some hard times yesterday. Didn't qualify well, but in the last practice session, he was 4th fastest. Now, I asked him if he was happy with the race setup. He said no, but then he said, I never am. He's got 400 miles to figure it out. Vince?
Will this be the day that 4-time series champ Dario Franchitti gets his first win of the season? Well, it's certainly been a struggle to get to today. His car has been slow throughout the course of the weekend, but an engine change just before the final practice gave him the boost he needed, and Dario suddenly was one of the fastest. He'll have to come from the 20th spot today, but he believes he's got a car that can get to victory lane this afternoon at Pocono.
All right, thanks, Vince. Don't forget, you can get this broadcast in Spanish if you want to. All you have to do is activate your SAP button. It's presented by ESPN Deportes. You know, we talk about speeds. Let's give you a comparison. NASCAR to IndyCar. The pole record here for NASCAR is 179 and change. Marco went 221, so 41 miles an hour difference as we go 3 wide and get ready for the start of a lifetime here at Pocono, because it's been a long time since open wheel cars have raced here at the Tricky Triangle. They're coming out of turn number 3. Sit back, listen, and enjoy. You heard it, we're green. Whoa, spin up into turn 1 and hard into the wall. So we don't even make it through the first lap. And it is
hands off the steering wheel, which is always a very good thing to do.
James Hinchcliffe, starting on the front row, loses it going into turn number 1.
He's sitting there right now. I've done this before. When you've been out of a race, you're sitting in disbelief that you've actually hit the wall.
And he is the only driver this year that's won 3 races, so this is very uncharacteristic.
See him moving in the car. We know that he is fine. Disappointment without a doubt, especially here for a hometown of Andretti.
The irony, he led 226 laps in his win just 2 weeks ago at Iowa. He won't even make it through lap number 1 today.
You know, and on the start, we saw Ryan Hunter-Reay fall in behind Marco Andretti, and everybody looked to be having a good time going through turn 1. We'll have to get a replay here to see what happened to his car, if it was something mechanical or the car, what we call, is loose sometimes. Now let's watch, Eddie, because you can see the green car up on the top side. Maybe you can call it a little bit high out of the black up onto the gray area. Maybe just didn't have the grip with the right side tires going through the turn on the gray, because the tires are not up to temperature yet. It has a little step out there. See that step out, and then he didn't catch it and hits the wall.
Well, what we have to understand is that they're not at speed. These cars really work their best when they're above 220 miles an hour. So at the start, they're obviously going less. But here we'll have a very good view from inside the cockpit. Everything's fine at this point. He got loose. Dramatically loose turning in.
You know, I don't think there was really anything too much wrong with that. I'm sort of speculating that maybe something might have gone wrong in the car. Let's watch again. I mean, Ryan Hunter-Reay is up that high. The guy's been running that high all the way through. The third car on your screen right there starting to walk itself as he starts to go into the turn. That's when the car is getting loose. The back end comes around, and he felt that right away, folks, because when you feel that, you know it. He counter steers and couldn't correct.
The wiggle reminded me of E.J. Vizo's crash yesterday in almost the same spot during qualifying.
Every car accident we've had here has been in turn 1.
Oh, and he's limping a little bit, so we'll get a check on James and hope that he is A-OK. He'll make the trip over to the infield care center.
I bet if you were to ask him, he would tell you, I don't know what happened, but it's obvious that when the back end gets out like that, it's just natural to correct, and you get those little corrections, and then it just multiplies, and it's very disappointing.
Now, the car should have been the same as what he qualified and practiced with yesterday. Sometimes teams do make a slight change on the car for the weather conditions. You never know if that might have caused that.
So our first caution has come out. We have a total of 158 laps still to go as we get cleaned up on our first lap crash involving James Hinchcliffe. The man up front is that man right there, Marco Andretti. Back here at Pocono Raceway, the 27 on the hook, and you saw Sebastian Zavedra. They pushed that car behind the wall. They have a stuck throttle issue. It's been feast or famine for James Hinchcliffe. Barber crashed on lap 3, Long Beach on 34, Pocono here on lap 1. That goes in contrast to his 3 wins, which leads everyone in the series. Now, Jamie Little, during this yellow, has caught up with a very special guest. Jamie?
Well, fresh off your race last night in Daytona, you're here on the starting grid at Pocono. What brings you here?
I'm not sure who's more excited to be here, me or Leo. Actually, he's the one that saw the cars on TV in the ad and said to my wife Ingrid, race car, and so he said, well, heck, we're here in New York. Let's go out there. So I've also got my nephew from Belgium's in town too. So we're excited to be here. This is incredible. I mean, to be back at Pocono after so many years and to run the speeds that they're running here, how could I miss that? And you know, he likes cool race cars, so he's excited to be here and see him.
Well, enjoy being just race fans today.
I am totally just being a race fan and enjoying it, and thanks to Pocono Raceway for hooking me up and taking such good care of me, and can't wait to get the green flag and see what these things are going to do, especially this 3-wide start.
That's Jeff Gordon, a 6-time winner here in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Pocono.
And of course, that was right before we went green, and right now we're getting ready to go back to green flag racing. 5th race this year that Marco Andretti has been your race leader. 4 of the 5 have been on the ovals. Cars through tunnel turn, now heading down towards turn number 3, the restart zone, and then down that long front straightaway. Here we go.
This is a lot different than starting 3 abreast, Scott.
Very much so, and this is where you get the opportunity to get the draft. You hope you did a good start, went through the gears correctly, and make a move, as we're seeing right now with Tony Kanaan on the underside of Ryan Hunter-Reay.
And a little bit further back, it was Takuma Sato also making some moves, and he's still side by side. So move Kanaan up to 2nd behind Marco Andretti. And there is Sato, and boy, that's close. That is with the 3-car of Elio Castroneves, the points leader.
This track is so wide, Scott, isn't it? You can have 4 or 5 abreast going into corner, but you cannot make it around the corner 4 abreast.
Well, that's true, and that's the 2 why you'll never do it. And I think Elio was just trying to push him down a bit. Here we go.
Tristan Vautier in the 55 underneath Elio. So Castroneves going the wrong direction right now.
And just to make it clear to everybody, we are already above 215 miles an hour. This is very tight for some very fast racing. And he's getting the position back.
Rick, you've got more?
Well, interesting to point out, right before the race, Rick Mears came on and was talking with Elliott and said, don't forget, I can't really watch you all the way through turn 1. I can get you there, I can tell you if someone's around, but I can't tell you what's happening in turn 1. There's only one spotter for Elio. He's up in the center, so when they get into that turn 1, Elio's got to be careful.
We've heard that from several teams.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about Eddie and I just over the lunch break before we came on air. This might be a track that's so large that you need 2 spotters for this race course. And when we came up into the booth for the very first time, I said to these guys, you almost need binoculars to see across the side of the track. That's how big this track is.
So right now it's Andretti, Kanaan, Hunter-Reay, your top 3. Then Power, Sato, Castroneves. That's your top 6.
Now this turn 1 we're going through is a little bit like a roller coaster ride because it rises up before you enter in, and then it goes down to the dip, and then it rises again on the exit, and you're already going speeds at Indianapolis type all the way very quickly going into 2. We're going to see, nope.
Will Power thought better of it, fell back in line. And that is Takuma Sato in the 14. A.J. Foyt back at home in Texas, watching on TV after hip replacement surgery. A.J., your car's doing fine this weekend, and get well soon. We need you back out here. Vince?
frustrating end of the day for James Hinchcliffe. Turn 1, first lap. What happened, James?
I mean, it just snaps. You know, we got loose. We've been battling understeer with a hot day. We kind of were planning for the car being a bit more pushy than I guess it ultimately ended up being. We went a little aggressive on setup, and I don't know if it was maybe too much or what, but it's just so weird. You know, I had a moment kind of like that in qualifying, and I guess I used up all my luck/talent saving it then because we didn't have enough this time. It's just for the downforce level we were running and the setup that we had, there's just no way I would have thought that's the kind of accident that would have taken us out. You know, especially on lap 1, tires were fresh, everything was good. So it's devastating, man. I mean, had to go to Eddie Carr out. The Andretti Autosport 1, 2, 3 didn't last too long, and you know, I feel bad for the team. You guys work so hard, and hopefully Marco and Ryan can fly the flag and try and bring it home for us.
Everything okay physically?
Yeah, I banged my knee a little bit, but just kind of like hitting the funny bones.
Thanks, James. Marty.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. And as you were watching on the right side of your screen, Charlie Kimball was taking a look under Tristan Vautier, not able to get it done. That's Simona Di Silvestro, the third car in that group, and she's going to now take a peek underneath. Can't get it done.
Well, you got to get this done before you arrive at the turn, because these turns do narrow up, and it's one lane through there. And Eddie, you and I were talking the other day, it's almost like a little bit like Indianapolis. You start your passing back in the, say, third or fourth turn at Indianapolis to turn in turn 1, as we saw Pagenaud go by. It's the same situation here.
And these corners are different in Indianapolis because you're in them longer, and the G-force is not 3 like it is in Indy. It's very close to 5, and you're in that corner for such a long time that you really don't want to be in a lane that you're uncomfortable with, because you cannot make any changes around the corner.
There's Ed Carpenter going around Dario Franchitti. Now, Franchitti had moved up to the 14th position. Now he's been bumped back 1 to 15th. He started 20th.
And 14th is actually a better position than he has been lately in the ovals. He's struggling a lot. Did an engine change of the day, and it seemed he was a lot quicker. But he's one of those drivers that always finds a way to improve his car throughout the race. So if he has a good horse underneath him today, expect him to be strong at the end.
Let's check in with Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, Ed Carpenter was saying yesterday he was one of the guys worried about passing on this track. There seem to be two groups of drivers. Some who say you can do it, and some who say it's going to be a tricky proposition. And Ed was one of those. Now, he's in the middle of the pack now. Passing those guys a little bit easier. Once he gets to the front of the pack, it's going to be a lot tougher to get by people.
Well, we've got to remember that this is the first set of laps that they have done in a race condition. You can do all the simulation you want. You can look at all the old videos you want. But until you've been in the track and you've run it and you've run out your tires, you really don't know how the track is going to evolve, Scott.
And the first run, as you mentioned, Eddie, is going to be interesting because you're going to see how your tire wear is, how the balance of your car is working. They'll report that back to the pit lane. Engineers will make changes, and a fresh set of tires after the first stop. The guys will be back to racing hard.
Well, the only driver who's actually run a race here before on this entire field was Dario Franchitti back in 2008. He ran NASCAR, and he finished 41st in that race. It was not a very good day for Dario that day in NASCAR. All right, we're going to get out of here just for a bit. That is Marco Andretti. There's his dad, Michael. Stay with us. We're back after a word from your ABC stations. NASCAR Nationwide action continues next week at New Hampshire. Saturday coverage begins at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on ABC. Sam Morris Jr. second in the points. Finished 4th there last year. Chip Danton will be there next week. 3 Eastern on ABC. You're riding on board with Ryan Briscoe. He has moved into the 17th spot. Now, Ryan, of course, was running at Lime Rock, won his class, finished 3rd overall. They actually had only done the pre-testing over 300 laps, and that's why they didn't worry about him coming over and racing. Now, here is the laps led this league season, and Hinchcliffe, number 1, at 226. Marco behind at 165, but the only one of that group yet to win.
Yeah, they sure do know how to lead races at Andretti's, don't they? But Marco, you almost have the feeling this winter that he took his driving approach apart and rebuilt it and tried to add some patience to that. It's kind of like he took something out of that. It's kind of like he took something out of the Unser book. There you go, he's finishing races.
You know, and it's just some interesting thoughts when you mention that, because he was the guy that admitted that he went to a driving coach, an IndyCar driver with a last name Andretti, whose father raced, whose grandfather raced, went and sussed out a driving coach to understand what he was doing and what he wasn't doing. And I think he's become a better driver for it this year. He seems to be more relaxed, more confident, and certainly the pressure is on a driver when your dad has been racing. So I think for him, he had to find an avenue outside of the family, Eddie, to go do that.
Probably.
Let's check in on Scott Dixon, our biggest mover so far. Now remember, he had to change engines, so they actually qualified in the 7th spot, then had to move back 10. So he started 17th. You see right now he cycled his way 6 positions forward into 11th.
That's one of the biggest questions I've had this year is why is there such a big discrepancy between Dixon and his teammate?
Well, let's see if we can find out from down on pit lane. How about it, Rick DeBrule? What are you hearing?
Well, you know, they run very different setups, and that's been part of the issue. But also, Dario was concerned about his engine. Now, with Scott's engine, they changed that before this weekend. They decided they ran the Thursday test, and they were going to go ahead and run it this way just because they wanted to have the new engine. He says it's really a momentum key here. You got to keep the momentum. And as he comes up on those 2 cars ahead of him, you see right there with Simon Pagenaud, he says the key is not to get your foot out of it, keep the momentum all the way around. That's going to be his secret for passing.
That foot in it tends to work everywhere on a race course, doesn't it?
Well, and Scott was saying that really the tunnel turn, those alligator strips that they have down there for NASCAR, he said, boy, you do not want to hit those with an IndyCar.
That's what we were talking about. There really are not 2 lanes that are fully grooved all the way around here, because if you're on the bottom lane going around 2 and somebody has to move down on you, you will end up on that, and that's a really bad place to be in IndyCar. A NASCAR can do that. They're heavier. They're different. One of these things, it would not like it.
You can see the speed differential 3 miles an hour as Marco Andretti just continues to knock down laps. Our top speed has been 216, and that has been on full tank. So these guys are flying.
They're flying, and you know, these guys did do long runs during practice, and that's where you fill the tank up, you go out there and run, and you go about 32 laps under green. And then during that time, they're trying to understand what the tires are doing and how the car may fall off. And I think as we get through to the light fuel load, Eddie, and the tires start to wear down a little bit, the guys might start catching up to Marco, because we saw him run strong but start to taper off just at the end of the run.
He has an old, wise fox that is a fresh Indy 500 winner, just sitting behind him, counting the miles and not using his equipment. Marco's doing great, but he is leading the field. And unlike Indy, where you had to save fuel, here it's a good thing to win. It's a good thing to be in the lead.
Jamie Little
helps also.
You've got more?
Well, Tony Kanaan has been fast all weekend, was second in yesterday morning's practice. So I talked to him and he said everything's good with the car, but he decided they needed to be a little bit better. So before the final practice yesterday, they took 1 complete degree of rear wing out, and he liked it so much they kept it for today's race. Well, it's paying off. He started this race fit. He's worked his way up to second. You can see he has Marco Andretti in his sights, and all he's saying about his car, little bit of understeer, Marty.
216 miles an hour on the last lap, and we are now working lap number 23.
This race will get quicker as they go into it. Well, they really are on their first full stint. So you can bet there will be small changes made inside the cockpit, and like Jamie said, there'll be changes probably made on the wing as the temperatures cool down.
And those changes in the cockpit you mentioned, Eddie, that's because they have a weight jacker adjustment and a roll bar adjustment. The drivers change as they're going around the track. And this track is so big and the corners are so different. Drivers were telling me that they will set up the car going into turn 1, where you see Marco leading right now, and take this run down to turn 2, which they get through not too badly, but it's turn 3. That's the opposite to 1. They will make the adjustment inside the cockpit, change the roll bar and the weight jacker to make some weight go from the right to the left, make the car work better in turn 3, go back and change it again for turn 1. We never did that.
You never did it. I always did it.
Yeah, okay.
216 plus miles an hour. What's it like to be scared? Well, that would definitely scare a lot of us. What does it scare these drivers? What makes them afraid outside the cockpit?
What scares me? Probably heights.
Snakes. Roller coaster.
Cockroaches. That's a big one.
My wife, when she's mad.
That does not match well with Castro Neves and roller coaster.
What scares me? Losing.
Back at Pocono, IndyCar racing, the second jewel of the Triple Crown, and the National Guard crew has a Medal of Honor recipient in the pit box with him. Ryan Briscoe is on the racetrack, coming off a win yesterday in the ALMS Series at Lime Rock. Now, Briscoe did not practice or qualify this car yesterday, but he said it feels pretty comfortable here in the early stages, a little bit free. He did get to test the car a couple of times here at Pocono before the weekend, and that's been the saving grace for them so far today.
Yeah, Vince, it's been a busy 2 weeks for Ryan Briscoe, starting back with the 24 Hours of Le Mans on June 22nd and 23rd. And you mentioned the laps that they turned here during those test sessions, well over 300 laps, and that's why John Barnes was not so much concerned about Ryan being able
we'll give it a shot, Scott, does not mean like they're very confident to me.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that before. It's just like, okay, you come out and drive this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, word is, yes, Marco Andretti, our race leader on lap number 30, is coming down pit road. Now, remember, we had 4 caution laps, and we thought that teams would be able to go a little bit further than this, like to about 32. So we'll see if this is the trend. Rick, he's coming your way.
And in fact, a little bit earlier, they were talking about fuel strategy, questioning whether he wanted to do more or less. And they said, you know what, just leave it right the way it is. We're happy with it. They bring it in. Now talk of adjustments so far in terms of the way things are gone. They're not adjusting the wing. They're having a problem getting the fuel nozzle out. Just an extra second or two to get it out, and how's it going to affect him when he gets back out?
Well, and you saw Marco shaking his head, Eddie, and the situation in that scenario is you cannot get upset. You have to just close the door on that, move on, and go out and do your job on the track.
Well, that happened to him in Milwaukee as well, where they had trouble. So there is your race leader now, Tony Kanaan, and Takuma Sato's in, Jamie.
And his car has been pretty decent today. They're going to take 1 degree out of rear wing to help him on the straightaways. The wind is picking up in different directions, so you're hearing different things from drivers from turn 1 to turn 3. They go to work on the right side. A.J. Foyt watching his driver at home. They've had great speed all weekend long. They make that adjustment. It's a clean stop for Takuma Sato.
On the right side of your screen, you saw Charlie Kimball get around Tristan Vautier, so move Kimball up into the 5th position. We can also tell you that Graham Rahal and Josef Newgarden are now on pit road. Ryan Briscoe has also made a stop and heading back out.
And that conversation we heard from the Panther team with Briscoe, probably because the wind is changing, they'll make some changes here in the aero, as we heard.
Jamie, Tony Kanaan's coming your way.
They wanted to make a front wing adjustment, but they called that off. He doesn't want it any longer. Car has been good. 4 sticker tires. They'll fill them up with Sunoco fuel for the Sunoco car, and it's clean. Ryan Hunter-Ray made his stop, and it was clean as well, Marty.
So did Ed Carpenter, and Ryan Hunter-Ray does get around the 11.
It took Kanaan's fueler a few seconds to get engaged there.
Rick?
Ed Carpenter brings it in. He was complaining the car had a little light grip on 3, but he liked the way it was going into 1. They bring it in, fueling. It's a little long for the stop. They got a problem on the left front. They couldn't get everything set up. As a result, they got to pick them back up and send it back out. Good news is a long race to adjust for that mistake.
Will Power, who had assumed the race lead, and Rick, he's coming your way.
Yeah, Will Power trying to get that race that he's wanted all season long, especially on an oval. You see him come in. The goal for them this race, not to make any mistakes. Keep them consistently up front so they can take advantage of it at the end. Right now, you see mistakes made on other teams. That was a nice trouble-free stop, and he's out.
Power has one oval podium finish since his win in Texas in 2011. That was 3rd back in Milwaukee. Charlie Kimball is on your screen because he is right now your race leader as we're working lap 34 of 160. Tristan Vautier is in. Let's send it to Jamie.
Doing a nice job for his first time here. Of course, an Indy Lights graduate saying his learning curve has been steep this year as they count him down. He missed the pit stall. The team on the radio telling him he missed it. He's going to have to go all the way back around and hope he doesn't run out. Let's see. And you see Charlie Kimball there in his pit box, Marty.
Yeah, he actually just slid past him, so they just got the jack and jacked him up, and they're dragging him back. Charlie Kimball, as he pulls back out. Rick?
Scott Dixon brings the car in. It's been a nice trouble-free race. He's been slowly but surely moving up. Once again, trouble-free. He's out, Vince.
There's Tristan Vautier in the pit box. Dario Franchitti also came in, took 4 tires, obviously topped off in fuel, and added some front wing for Dario. Says the car's just a little bit too loose during that first stand.
So Franchitti pulls back out, and Vautier an extended stop here.
The car has been stalled, so they're trying to restart the car for him. Very frustrating for a driver.
Guess who's inherited the race lead? Pippa Mann, driving for Dale Coyne in this limited schedule this year as she becomes our 4th different leader.
That's what happens when you're fuel efficient. You have to do a few more miles and find yourself in the lead. That is a good place for her to be in.
The 18 is now in on pit lane.
And Marco's back in the lead again.
And it cycles on through. So it is Andretti, then Ryan Hunter-Ray, who got out in front of Tony Kanaan, Takuma Sato, and right now Will Power shown in 5th.
Now this is the first bit of traffic that Marco's had. Let's see how quick you can get by this car.
Look at the differentials when you get those fresh tires, about 5 miles an hour.
Nothing like a new pair of shoes.
Will Power in that black and white Verizon car trying to chase down Tony Kanaan. And that is for fourth. There you see Takuma Sato as he has got a good run going. Remember yesterday in the final practice, guys, he was leading in every 5-lap section except one.
We did think about the conditions yesterday were a little cooler. The track is just a little bit warmer right now, so it's going to be the play of the driver to get the feel for the car, radiating that information back, Eddie, to the engineers in the pit lane. They'll come up with some changes in the car for either tire pressures, wing changes. As we mentioned before, the drivers can make those adjustments inside the car to hopefully make the car handle better throughout the run.
But you have to be so careful that you don't give the wrong information, because you could take a car that's average and make it terrible with just two little changes. And this track is changing as they go along, and you can just tell everybody's getting more and more confident.
That's Ryan Hunter-Reay going around slower traffic there as he continues in second place.
I always have believed that Sato.
I only caught a bit of that radio transmission. There's Takuma Sato.
Sato has a different approach than the other drivers do, because he hasn't had that many ovals, so he's definitely thinking through the process, and the more he does, the better off he goes.
And that is Alex Tagliani, who is going down a lap as he has now been passed by first, second, and third. Let's go back and show you something a little bit earlier, Scott.
From the close calls, let's see. Wheel to wheel. Getting so close. Sato, I'm not going to give up. I know you're there. The spotters right now are talking to each other, to the drivers, letting them know what's going on. Here's where it's a traffic jam. Underneath the yellow line. Good thing the curb isn't there, because if that was turn 2 where the curb was, man, we'd have a problem.
Just gives you some of the idea. At over 216 miles an hour, these guys are paying tag, and you really don't want to make that contact. So Tagliani, as we pointed out, now a lap down. That means 19 cars on the lead lap. 2 cars are officially out. Sebastian Saavedra and James Hinchcliffe. Marco Andretti leading the pack here at Pocono. What a view of Pocono Raceway as we are past the quarter mark. And take a look at the brand new road course that they have put in there. They got 20 plus different arrangements that they can run as far as a different road course setup. They've done a lot of work here. The solar power plant and the hometown favorite, just 24 miles away, where he grew up in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. That's how the distance is from there to here at Long Pond. Young Marco Andretti, at the age of 26, has a 3.4 second lead over teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay. Then Takuma Sato, Tony Kanaan, and Castro Neves round out your top 5. Speaking of Takuma Sato, let's listen to the radio, because it was interesting about strategy. I don't think he has much of a choice, because Tony's coming.
Yeah, that's when you look in the mirrors and he says objects are closer than they appear, and that's certainly what he's getting right now. So as a driver, you'll radio back and say, can I go back to a more powerful fuel setting? And what he was asked to do was to save a little fuel by changing the fuel distribution knob on the steering wheel, Eddie. But as a driver, you know, you hate to see somebody catch you in the rearview mirror.
Especially if it's the Indianapolis 500 champion, Kanaan.
We talked about the fact that Marco set the pole speed here at 221 and change. His fastest race lap has been in the 216, 217 range. Scott Dixon has turned a 218 lap during the race. Let's go on board and show you the telemetry. Look at this, 223.
And he's still full throttle in turn 1. So if he's full throttle in turn 1, Scott, you'd have to think he's full throttle the whole way around, which is very impressive.
Here's turn 2, the one that's modeled after Indianapolis. 8 degrees of banking, now down the shortest straightaway, down to turn 3. And the turn that's modeled after Milwaukee, a little bit of lift you can hear. The car's not working as well there as it was in the other turn. 6 degrees in that banking. The thing they talk about. So left front tire, and that's Kyle Moyer on the radio. Interesting. So they're monitoring the tire pressures in the pit lane. You see Mario Andretti, 1986 Pocono race winner, watching out. And Rick, you have more?
Well, just talking about the fact that Marco's actually been on the radio quite a bit talking with the team. First about what to do about fuel. They decided to try a different fuel setting for a while. They liked it. They want to stretch it out just a little bit more. But they've also been talking about how Ryan Hunter-Reay is driving. The fact that Ryan's lifting at 2 points on the racetrack. Marco had a long conversation, constantly going off. Is he doing this? What's he doing here? He's been able to do a lot of that. Now the question is, what's going to happen to his lead and his race as he comes up on this race traffic ahead of him?
That's 19th place. It's Justin Wilson right in front of him there in the 19 car, and there's a total of 4 that he's going to have to maneuver.
And they're all battling for position. This is the first time the Marcos have to go around a big group of cars, and this creates a lot of disturbance in the air.
And what is the downforce level, meaning how much grip have they team put into him as he's now starting to take a look? Will he get the pass done? What you're looking for is to be able to time the pass exactly. Out in front, you can run less downforce because you have that clean air, Eddie, as you mentioned. When you get close to traffic that's up in front of you, that disturbed air starts to make your car not handle as well, and you have to time your passes correctly to get a run at the driver and make the pass completed before you get to the next turn.
And in the back of his mind, he knows that he has built up a good 3-second lead, but he has Hunter-Reay, Sato, and Kanaan behind him, so he can't waste too much time.
That's Pippa Mann in the 18 right there that he's going around. So Pippa is now a lap down in 19th position. Her teammate Justin Wilson, you saw get around Graham Rahal. And Rahal is next in the sights of our race leader in the 25. Rahal in that bright yellow Midas machine. Had a brush with the wall in one of the test sessions. Struggled early, but seemed to be coming around a little bit yesterday in the second practice. And here comes the 25 on the right side of the screen, ducking underneath and clearing.
That was textbook perfect. He gained a little bit in turn 3, managed to draft all the way down the straightaway and came out giving the other driver, Rahal, enough time to give him some room.
So that means 17 cars on the lead lap. That's EJ Vizo that Justin Wilson just got around. Now Vizo is already 1 lap down in 21st. He's about to go 2 laps down and is. So his car just not handling it all.
And that's his teammate. It's amazing how these Indy cars that are just a little bit off in their setup can be so much less performing as Vizo's is.
I think there's the answer we were looking for before in the radio communication to Marco. A little vibration possibly. He was talking about a left front and 10 laps away before their next fuel stop. So hopefully they'll get an opportunity to change that tire out, because sometimes the tire picks up debris on the track, rubber marbles, and it starts to go off balance.
When you're passing cars, you're going on a line that you're not used to. But here comes Hunter-Reay trying to get through as many cars as he can. He's doing it differently. He's trying to get 2 or 3 at a time.
He got him at the apex of turn number 2. Unreal. And look at this. Is they're going to go 3? No, they thought better of that.
Yeah, the problem is that the first guy you're approaching may see you. The second guy probably doesn't know you're on your way. So it's a little bit too early. That's a last lap, last turn type of pass.
All right, things look like they've settled down just for a moment as the Ryan Hunter-Reay goes around more lap traffic. We're going to take a break and come back because we're getting ready for another round of green flag pit stops. There's your race leader, Marco Andretti, back after a word from your ABC station. That is Sean Brady, our cameraman, and he is 125 feet high above the center of this track. A new camera angle that we've tried to show you. And look at the nice crowd that they've got on hand here at Pocono. Keep it locked on ESPN because we've got Major League Baseball coming your way tonight at 8 o'clock. It's David Ortiz, the AL East leading Red Sox facing Mike Trout and the Angels. Then tomorrow at 7, National League East. We got Bryce Harper leading the Nationals against Chase Utley and the Phillies. Both games are on ESPN. They're also live on Watch ESPN. We completed 55 of 160 laps, and here's a picture-perfect pass, taking advantage of lap traffic. Tony Kanaan going around Takuma Sato.
Kanaan saw that coming probably 400 yards before he had to pass. Sato got stuck in traffic, and he just positioned his car perfectly, just like a chess game. And there was nothing Sato can do. All he can do is get him back the next time Kanaan is in traffic, and there'll be lots of that in the next few laps.
Race leader Marco Andretti in that red and blue number 25. He has led a total of 51 laps. The next highest is Tony Kanaan and Will Power with 2 each. As we were cycling through pit stops, gives you an idea just how dominant a race car Marco has had as we go on board.
At this point, Marco has the fastest car on the racetrack. He seems comfortable everywhere he's at, even by himself. That says it all. You're doing a great job.
Look at the speed here going down this straightaway.
Well, the average speed last time around 2:15. Ryan Hunter-Reay was 2:12. The next guy closest to Marco, Tony Kanaan, who rides in third, was 2:13. And Sato just popped up at 2:14.
Look at this. We had 3 cars going nose to tail as you see Tony Kanaan going around Graham Rahal as a lap down, and here Takuma Sato could not get it done.
Now watch how much space Sato lost on that one corner. It'll take him, if he has the speed, it'll probably take him 5 laps to get back up to Kanaan again. You have to really time your passes well here, but sometimes you get forced into a position that you really can't do anything but dive in at the last moment and hope the other car gives you room. And Rahal obviously didn't have any room at all.
Yeah, we talked about Graham. It's not been the season that he wanted. He changed from the Ganassi team last year over to his dad's team, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, and expected a lot more as far as results are this season, but certainly hasn't got it. And you know, sometimes his teammates been going faster than him. He has struggled with a less downforce in the car, the different tires they've been bringing out, and he'll be the first to admit it. He says we can't put our finger on it yet.
It's just a little chemistry that's missing.
His best 2 finishes, second at Long Beach and a 5th 2 weeks ago at Iowa.
But it was a strong 5th. And
it
was a race. He won one of the heats going into the race, and he had a good race, but not to the level that Rahal is used to.
Right now we have 17 cars on the lead lap. Justin Wilson is the next victim if Marco Andretti can get to him. And it looks like he might be able to. There is Dixon. Scott is now in 8th position. His teammate Dario Franchitti is in 12th.
They're slowly moving their way up through the field with great pit stops and clean driving.
Charlie Kimball has picked up 5 from where he started. He's in 7th position.
You know, it's interesting because we had the conversation with Scott the other day about, you know, a season back in 2004, 2005 when they didn't have the horsepower that the other engines did, and they started to have to run a car with less aero downforce on it, and they didn't really have a car that gripped the road. And there's many times where he overdrove the car and went into the wall. And I said, the situation now, and we know that Honda has a little bit less power than Chevrolet. Is it the same scenario as you had in 04, 05? He said, no, I've learned from that. I will not overdrive the car. And the G-Force car was not as good as this Dallara car that they're running, but he says, I've learned from that, and we're going to get the car going as fast as it can and take what it gives us instead of overdriving.
We have to explain downforce a little bit to everybody. Downforce is something that you put on the car, but it doesn't come for free. Every time you make the car put more downforce in it, it costs you in the straightaway. So that just those two things, they just don't work together. So you want a car that's fast with no downforce in it.
Guys, we think Marco Andretti is going to be coming soon. We can tell you Sebastian Bourdais has already stopped. Here comes Marco, and Rick, the race leader, is coming your way.
And I can tell you the team has already made a significant change.
Contact. Ryan Hunter-Reay actually made contact with the car as they approached. Jamie, what did you see?
Well, you saw it right there. Ryan Hunter-Reay in disbelief right now. He was following strategy with his teammate Marco Andretti. They called him in. They were going to make a front wing adjustment. The team, I'm standing right next to them on pit road. They're in shock right now. Here's the replay. Let's take a look.
Now, I was watching Takuma Sato's car. It had damage. Yes, Sato was coming in way too fast. Wow.
Sato must have had problems with his brakes. He was 20 miles an hour faster than Hunter-Reay was.
What a tough break for Ryan Hunter-Reay, defending series champion. You know, as they were running, he had actually retaken the points lead. But now
there was nothing, absolutely nothing he could do. The last thing that he thought was going to happen was that he would get hit from behind from Sato.
Tony Kanaan has made his pit stop, and now we are just going full course. Jamie?
And we're under yellow. Yep. And Ryan Hunter-Reay is still on the radio. The pits are closed. You're on board with Tony Kanaan. It was a clean stop for him. 4 tires. Once again, no changes for him. And we're trying to get an update on the 14, Marty. As soon as I get that, I'll get it to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jamie. As there is the crew working on Sato's car, and his damage is on the left rear.
This changes the complete complexion of the race. Now Kanaan doesn't have any pressure from Marco's teammate, and he can slowly work on him lap by lap by lap, and that really becomes, at this point, almost a 2-car race.
I'll tell you another guy who's breathing easier is our points leader coming in, Elio Castroneves, because he was not running as strong as that one car right there.
You know, it was just a little bit strange because it's almost like sitting in a traffic light and getting rear-ended. And for Ryan Hunter-Reay, who's coming in, as you can see him on the right-hand side of your screen in the yellow DHL car, and all of a sudden, a car comes up from the right-hand side, and just runs over him.
And if you see those two cones, if you go back and see those two cones, you have to be, how many miles an hour? 60. So that other car was way over the 60.
All right, we've got Ryan Hunter Race Radio. Let's listen.
Sato just ran into me. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. I couldn't believe it. What an idiot.
And it looks like that right front suspension is certainly bent. And if that's the case with the suspension pieces and the A-arms and everything of that nature, just this area just in there, that might not be repairable.
I'd say he's done for the day. He might be able to come back, but he definitely will not be.
400 miles, Eddie. I don't know. I'd be getting in there and fixing this and then coming out and getting some points, because you know something, at the end of the season, championship can be won or lost by, 2, 3, 5 points.
But he's not going to be in a position to win.
Let's update you. Ed Carpenter has made his pit stop and gone back out. We show 13 cars right now on the lead lap. There's Ed back out on track. Will Power is shown as our race leader. Now, that was just a splash for Carpenter because pits are closed, and you can only come in if you need emergency fuel to keep from running out. So he did not make tire changes. And Josef Newgarden is doing the same thing as he is taking a splash of fuel down on pit road. Jamie?
Well, here's the update that we have right now. Takuma Sato, no word on exactly what happened. And Larry Foyt just told the team we need to take him back to the garage. So they're taking the 14 back. They were having a great day, running top 5 the entire day. Meanwhile, the one, Ryan Hunter Ray, Ryan just came on the radio and said, guys, we need manpower down here. We need to rally around. You see him right there, one of the crew members motioning to the front end. Obviously, they need a new front nose and some other suspension pieces damaged as well. But this is a championship team. They proved it last year. They're going to fight till the end and try to get this car back out.
We've seen these guys rally before, as Jamie mentioned, and they're going to have to pull off a miracle there. And there's the crack on the 14 that has damaged Sato's car.
And that's in the back of the car. He hit him with the front of the car.
Well, and his left rear also. His left rear also went up and over. So pits are now open, and we'll be expecting everybody to be coming in because a lot of people are going to be on fumes. And here comes Will Power and a bunch of others. Let's send it down to Vince.
And Dario Franchitti is coming in. Remember, Franchitti still seeking that first win of the season. Started 20th today. Has made his way up through about half the field. It's a 4-tire change. Fresh Firestone's also going to take a quarter wing, a front turn. Quarter turn, a front wing. Rick?
Will Power happy with the car. The problem is he got stuck. Elio was able to come in before that yellow flag. Will came in afterwards as a result, so he's going to be on.
There you see Power. And there's Dixon. And as soon as you get out, you can go. I don't know if they're going to allow that one because we're under yellow.
You can't do that.
So we'll wait and see what the call would be there.
Another call we'll have to look for is also Sato gets a penalty for contact.
Well, we'll wait to find out if there's any ruling on that move by Scott Dixon. There's your top 5 right now as we are on lap 66 at Pocono. And you saw on side by side Josef Newgarden and Ed Carpenter take their full stops. Gives us a chance to talk about the Honda Indy Toronto, the second of 3 double headers. It's going to be from Toronto. Our friends at NBC Sports Network will have the first ever standing start Saturday 3 Eastern for race number 1. Then next Sunday at 3 Eastern, same network on NBC, race number 2. And the man who is going to be going back to his hometown, James Hinchcliffe, has just joined us in the booth. We're going to get him wired up, and we'll get a few words from him because he knows the frustration that Takuma Sato is facing right now, as is Ryan Hunter Ray, his teammate, as we are under our second caution here at Pocono Raceway. As it is Tony Kanaan in front of Marco Andretti, then Elio Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud, and Will Power shown now in the 5th position.
You know, Marty, we were talking during the break, and you had a great thought that possibly the brakes weren't warm for Takuma Sato when he was coming in, because with these carbon brakes, you need to put your foot on it, warm the pads up just a little bit and the disc up a little bit to get them to grip, and he just came in there 20 miles an hour too fast.
All right, there is the blend line. You can see that there is Tony Kanaan. He gets out before Marco comes around. That's why Tony Kanaan extends all the way across the track there, and there is Marco. So that gives you an idea and the reason why TK is now in front and our 7th lead change. And there is Kevin Kalkoven, the man who, along with Jimmy Vasser right behind him, are hoping that their man Tony Kanaan can stay right where he is up front. we're going to move over for just a few moments, and James Hinchcliffe will join us. All right, you saw what was going on in side-by-side. Our second caution, and both cautions have involved team cars from Andretti Autosports. And James Hinchcliffe will be joining us here in the booth as we show you exactly what happened on lap number 1. The car snapped on him heading into turn 1. You can see just how quickly everything happened. And we were just talking with you, James, during the break. You were saying, James, as we welcome you in, that you were in 4th gear and you didn't even expect it.
You know, it's one of those things. We weren't even fully up to speed yet. You're not entering turn 1 off the start with anything like the speed you do normally, and you know, behind 2 cars, normally you lose the front end. You know, you get a little bit of aero wash in the dirty air, and I was prepared for some understeer. Was just kind of being cautious, no pressure from behind, and it snapped.
Your teammates, Ryan Hunter-Reay gets run over by Takuma Sato. EJ Vizo's having problems. Really, the flag's got to be carried by Marco Andretti. He's led the most laps at 55. He's second right now. What do you think his chances are based on what you've seen through practice and the race?
Well, I mean, this guy's dominated the entire week here, and you know, I know he's finding himself in position. He doesn't want to be right now P2, but his car's good enough. He was always good in the practice, so hopefully he'll be the guy.
Well, Tony Kanaan is leading with Andretti, Castroneves, Pagenaud, and Power as we are back to green flag racing.
And Marco doesn't look like he wants to hang around in second.
Can he make it stick going down into 1? Look at this. They're 4 wide here at Pocono. Pagenaud on the far right of your screen, and Marco retakes the lead, and look at Pagenaud move to 3rd.
Wow, what an amazing opportunity. This track is so wide, wider than Indianapolis. The drivers are taking advantage of it. And James, you know that when you get into turn 1, it's like a roller coaster, as we see right now. Castroneves going past.
Yeah, he shoves it right back in his face and says, I'm taking the spot back, so move Elio into 3rd.
It is wide in the straightaways, but you don't see too many people going side by side around the corners.
That was Newgarden in the 67 and Simona Di Silvestre almost getting into it. They survive as here they come out of turn 3 down the long front straightaway. And that's just the first lap since we went back to green.
As we know, that's the opportunity on a start or restart is to pass the guy that's in front of you. Whoa! And remember, that's at 215, 20 miles an hour.
The problem is with the straightaway so long, you think the guy next to you's got all this room when you make moves like that and sort of force him to use the extra racetrack. But it's incredible to see the bobbing and weaving going on right now.
It's Newgarden and Alex Tagliani deep into this field. Right now, we can tell you 16 total cars are on the lead lap. The race lead is Marco Andretti. He's already opened up a half second as we're watching some of this action going on back in the field as you saw Tagliani go around the 15 of Graham Rahal. Tagliani the far left of your screen with the blue and the black. Rahal in the yellow and black.
So Castroneves has quietly worked his way into 3rd place here. The Chevys are the first 3, and we have 2 Hondas with Pagenaud and Dixon that are following.
Yeah, the toughest part for Ryan Hunter-Reay is when somebody reminds him that as they were running, he was in the points lead. Right now, he's in the garage area, and he's 36 points behind. All because of the contact with Takuma Sato. While we're watching this, I've got to ask you, we saw you limp. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I banged my knee up a little bit when I hit there, but you know, it's incredible the safety these cars have and these tracks have now for us to take a hit like that. And you know, my knee was sore for about a minute and it's fine now.
As you can see, there's the top 3. They're sort of holding station, so Jamie Little has caught up with Takuma Sato. Let's find out his version of what happened.
Yes, he's very upset. Takuma, you came onto pit road extremely fast. What exactly happened?
I think I misjudged it. That's just too fast, and I was killing speed, tried to, but it was just middle of the cone, and I lost back end side into the Ryan. So extremely sorry to the Andretti Autosport and Ryan Race and his crews, and as well as my crews, and you know, prepare the great things, and it's more my fault.
Just misjudged it. They're working on the car right now, Marty. They're going to try to get Takuma Sato back out.
Well, it's 2 good race cars that are not going to have a chance to win this race today because they were both running in the top 5. And of course, you had some history with him back at Brazil, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right. A little bit of a different circumstance, and luckily for me, that one turned out, you know, pretty well for us. Unfortunately, Ryan, I mean, 100% the victim there. That's never something you're going to expect, somebody coming into the back of you like that. But coming off of turn 3 and getting the thing slowed down to 60 miles an hour is incredibly difficult. You've got to try and keep it tight. There's not a lot of banking to help you out. You're really conscious of the guys behind you. And yeah, you're obviously not using the brakes around here, and so they are cold, and these things can happen.
And that's one of those places where you have to gain as much time as you can. As when you're leaving the pits, you can't just lollygag around and slow down at a gentlemanly pace, can you?
You know, exactly right. You know, with the entry being so wide and open like that, there's a lot of time to be made and lost there. And you know, Takuma was going for it. Unfortunately, in practice, we don't get a lot of opportunity to try those really hot entries. The teams don't like it. It wears on the brakes a bit, and sometimes you end up doing a little bit of learning in the race itself, which is the worst time. And unfortunately, it caught Takuma out this time.
But you have no choice, do you?
You don't have a choice.
You have to always risk everything you can as much as you can.
No attack, no chance.
That's right.
All right, they're coming.
Sorry, as a driver here, the drivers that are liking this course, a lot of you guys, and I spoke to you the other day, is that this track, as difficult as it is, it's a lot of fun to drive.
It is a lot of fun. You know, it's so challenging. Most of the ovals we go to are really only 2 corners. We call them 4, and then this one says, you know, 1 less corner. It's actually 1 more corner, and they are all so different. Normally, they're very similar end to end, even if just geometrically to look like they might drive a bit differently, fine. But here, you have very different cambers, very different radii. I mean, everything's incredible about this place.
Focused in on Simon Pagenaud. He's got another good run going. Remember, he won back at the second race at Detroit in June and then finished 6th last time out at Iowa and has been coming on strong. Right now, running in 4th position, just a second and a half behind the race lead.
I cannot think of a racetrack that is more diametrically opposite Detroit than Pocono.
Pagenaud's doing a really good job. You know, it's a guy who had to really learn oval racing last year at this level. I mean, he's coming on strong. He's improving a lot.
Now, let's focus in on Justin Wilson, because remember, he was in jeopardy of going a lap down. And right now, guys, thanks to staying on the lead lap, getting a good pit stop, he just turned in the fastest lap on that last lap of the field. He is in 9th position. So a nice rebound.
You know, for a driver who has so much road racing experience, Formula 1 experience, he always comes on strong at the end of events. You know, I can think of events that we've covered earlier this year. Then you look at it, the last 30 or 40 laps, and all of a sudden, who's there? Justin Wilson. You can't find a more likable guy really in the paddock area a lot of times. Even when things are not going well, he always seems to put a good spin on it. Would love to see him have another great finish here.
How much effort do you put into your training?
I mean, it's other than driving the race car, it's the most important thing that we do. You know, these cars are so physical to drive. Even an oval like this, the high banks in turn 1, and then you're sort of death gripping the steering wheel through turn 3.
Is it really heavy? Is the steering really heavy around here?
The steering's incredibly heavy. You got a lot of downforce, and that generates a lot of force through the wheel.
Let's send it down to Jamie. Jamie, it looks like things going on in Ryan Hunter Race Camp.
Well, good news for Ryan Hunter-Reay fans. He is going to attempt to go back out. They're bringing the starter to fire him up. What they did, they replaced the front wing, and it was the right front damage and right rear adjustments as well. They had a lot of damage back there, suspension parts as well. So they brought it together. They're going to see if they can get back out there and get back up to speed and salvage some points.
He is 18 laps down right now in 22nd position. Sato also 18 down. Only 2 other cars are out of the race. James Hinchcliffe, who's here with us in the booth, Sebastian Saavedra. So that updates you on what's happening there. Marco Andretti's out in front. We're back after a word from your ABC station. Time for the Brothers Race Rundown to get you caught up on what's happened so far. A 3-wide start, just like we do at Indianapolis, and will do again at Fontana. Didn't last long, though, for our guest, James Hinchcliffe. The car just snapped out on him, and he hit the wall. And then here's Castroneves and Sato, as they had a couple of close calls going wheel to wheel. And, it got very tight right there. Sato would end up also being involved in our second caution, as he just admitted he was too fast and runs over Ryan Hunter-Reay, who at that point was actually leading the points based as they were running. But right now he is literally 35 points behind as they run. And there is Marco Andretti, your race leader, restarted in second, but got past Tony Kanaan, who's now in second, right into turn 1 on that restart.
And Castroneves is right behind. Kanaan's the only one that's hunting down that Triple Crown, so he's in a very good position today.
He won Indianapolis. If he wins here Pocono and Fontana, it's an extra $1 million in his bank account. If he wins 2 of the 3, it's an extra $100 grand. So even that is nothing to sneeze at.
And believe me, his mechanics are doing everything they can to make sure they're in the right place.
And I've just been corrected. They just gave the pay increase. It's up to $250,000.
Do that again, we might make it all the way to $500,000.
And you'll get back in the car?
It would take a little bit more than that.
On board with Tony Kanaan. Look, I've been marveling. I remember the old days of Pocono, and this would have been like rattling your teeth. And look how calm his hands are.
They look calm, but I guarantee you he's gripping the wheel pretty tight through turn 1 here. It's as we were speaking about the high banks here, as you see him working the throttle, not flat at this point in the draft behind Marco, and it is a physical racetrack for an oval, especially one this big.
Give us an idea of how heavy the steering is when you commit to turn 1.
Well, think of it this way. The race car weighs about 1,500 pounds, right? And you're generating a decent amount more than that in downforce. So you're trying to turn a car that's going 200 miles an hour that weighs 1,500 pounds. You're adding G-forces. The downforce in the car is pushing it into the track. We don't have power steering. So unlike a road car where the quicker the speed goes, if you don't have power steering in a road car, the lighter the steering gets, the heavier the steering gets here in an IndyCar. So when you hit 200 miles an hour, high bank track, it is like trying to take two 25-pound dumbbells, hold them out in front of you, and kind of turn them in a steering wheel motion. And to do that for 160 laps is very tiring.
Ed Carpenter has just gotten around Justin Wilson, so move Carpenter to 9th, move Wilson back to 10th. Let's get you up to speed. Start at the front of the field where Marco Andretti's now led 71 laps, Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, and he has to feel very confident, especially at that last stop where he came in, had a problem, was able to get out. And I should point out, they have changed the fueler on that car, apparently as a result of that problem. Mike Miller, who came off Hinchcliffe's car, is now doing the fueling on Marco's car. Jamie?
And Tony Kanaan, right where he's been most of this race, in second position. Started the race fifth. Now, coming into this race, he told me he was fired up. This is the same car he drove to victory lane at the Indianapolis 500. They took a gamble before the race, taking some downforce out, and it's paid off today, Rick.
Elio Castroneves in third right now. Says the car's vibrating a lot. They made a wing adjustment the last time they came in. It would be so significant for them to win here today. They've won here 7 times, Penske has, but more importantly, they got the first of their 166 IndyCar victories right here. Jamie?
Simon Pagenaud, impressive run for him today. Started this race 8th. Now, last week, interesting, he went to Pikes Peak and did the hill climb, the famous race that it was, in a minivan, a 500 horsepower minivan. He loved the experience, but said he was fired up and ready for this race. The car has been great all day. Vince?
Jumping just outside the top 5 to 7th place with Charlie Kimball, and it's been a good effort from Kimball. The key given Kimball for a successful day, giving him a car that allows him to be confident driving it, and that's what his crew has given him today. They did make a slight air pressure adjustment on that last pit stop, but a very good race car for Charlie Kimball, and he is currently running 7th. Just behind him is his Ganassi teammate, Dario Franchitti. Remember, Franchitti started 20th. Hard to believe that he's led just one race all season. Doesn't even have a podium finish. His car quite a bit better today than it's been over the course of the weekend. Certainly it's faster. He's been fighting a loose condition most of the afternoon, Marty.
All right, and so we mentioned Carpenter and Wilson take care of 9th and 10th. And Scott Dixon running in 5th, Will Power in 6th. We had talked about them just a little bit earlier, so that's why we went up to speed with everybody else, gets caught up. And Dario, I'll tell you what, we know how frustrated he was yesterday. Right after the qualifying run, he gets on the radio and he said, "This is embarrassing." And it's nice to see him.
The whole season really has been embarrassing, but he seems to be on an upswing here. And Scott and James, he's talked a lot about being loose throughout the whole season. He keeps trying to chase that loose position. And yet his teammate, Scott Dixon, although he complains about it, he seems to be able to live with that. Are the cars that sensitive now to?
They really are, and there's been a change in the philosophy of the tires over the offseason, which has changed some of the setups a little bit. And you know, drivers have different styles. Dart is very much a driver that prefers a solid rear and can drive through some understeer. Scott, very tolerant of a loose race car. And when you're in a position where you know, the car's a little bit on the free side, if you're not one of the drivers that's comfortable like that, you're really going to struggle.
All right, that's a great point. And as we continue to look down, as Dario comes down that long straightaway, we'll step aside just for a second as we got Marco Andretti with a half a second lead over Tony Kanaan here at Pocono. You saw Marco Andretti's pit stop, a little problem on the left front. Here comes Elio Castroneves. Rick, he's coming your way.
Yeah, they've decided to put a little more downforce back into the car. The last stop, they took it out. This time the plan is to put just a little bit more in. Remember, he said he had that vibration during the last stint. The hope is that by changing tires, they'll solve that problem. Nice clean stop either way.
That's not so much a question of putting more downforce in. That's putting more downforce in the front. It looked like his car might have had a little bit too much push because they did not touch the rear wing.
And there is Tony Kanaan as he is now going to make his way down pit road. So he made about 2 laps longer than Marco Andretti.
And that's something that he achieved by running in Marco's draft, lifting a little bit, and saving a bit of fuel. But 2 laps, that's he did a good job saving back there, because these are long laps here at Pocono.
How do you do that?
Jamie?
Tony Kanaan very happy with his car. Simon Pagenaud in the pit box behind him. 4 tires. They'll fill him up with Sunoco fuel. No changes for Tony Kanaan.
Simon Pagenaud right behind him, and can he get out ahead of Tony Kanaan? They're side by side. This could be interesting. There's the blend line, and they can go.
And that's gearing right there. That is a different, probably second gear in those cars. And that was when you saw them leave and get off the button the exact same time, but Pagenaud got the jump there. That could be huge. This is bad for Tony.
How frustrating is that?
That's the worst. Just sitting there being absolutely flat out and watching somebody else just pull away.
And here's Pagenaud's save as he was trying to get down to 60 miles an hour before hitting that mark right there.
And he got sideways also coming in.
You know, with these old cast iron brakes, those brakes used to come on right away. They get warm right away. And as you know, James, today, you got to put your foot on the pedal and drag it to warm it up coming in.
And Tony's ahead.
And he passed
He got by Pagenaud,
Yep,
and Marco is back there.
And there is Marco Andretti right behind Pagenaud.
Chooses the low side. He's going to get this completed before he gets into 1. And then he will set his sights up front on Tony.
Now remember, we've still got a lot of pit stops to cycle through. This is back in the field for 11th position. So Marco Andretti in front of Pagenaud, but trailing Tony Kanaan.
Of all the corners, James, is 2 the easiest one to stick on somebody's gearbox?
Will Power is in. Rick?
And he's been very happy with the car all day long. Not a lot of change. In fact, they've made almost no changes to the car. Once again, the goal was just to do things as cleanly as possible. And for Will, that's been a great race. Ed Carpenter also in. They were debating about changes to the very last minute, decided not to make anything significant.
He came in 6th for Ed Carpenter. Now this is the race leader, and it looks like Scott Dixon is going to relinquish the lead as he'll cycle through for his pit stop. Jamie, we're sending it down to you.
And you see a few cars on the same strategy. And they're on the radio talking. Justin Wilson made his way in. You see Scott Dixon is in his box. There's Dario Franchitti down and away. So a little bit different strategies by 1 lap. Mixing it up, Scott Dixon. 4 tires and fuel. And it's clean. Marty?
Thank you, Jamie. And here they go. And it looks like Dixon will get out in front of Dario with Kimball right behind. So all 3 Target Chip Ganassi racing machines make it back out onto the track. And Dixon may still have the lead, because I just saw Tony Kanaan coming through there.
You know, and how difficult is this, James, when you come out and you have to go onto the racetrack, and not like Indianapolis where their speeds are the same type of speeds, 220 miles an hour. As we watch Dixon now starting to look at the turn, you have to go out there and make sure you blend in correctly.
It's very difficult. You know, in Indy, you've got the warm-up lane. You come out on the straightaway. Here, you essentially come out going into turn 1, and the high line in turn 1 for a high bank corner is not as rubbered in as we see at places like Texas, like Iowa, and it makes it very difficult for the cars on track.
That 7-second pit stop for Scott Dixon was just good enough that he has still got the race lead. Tony Kanaan right behind him.
Kanaan didn't even try to pass him. He didn't even stick his nose out. I'm still baffled by how Dixon jumped so far ahead.
Staying out a lap longer, it's absolutely king. It helped Tony get ahead of Marco, and Scott got that 1 lap longer on Tony. And we used to joke that Scott's the guy known for making fuel in his car. He's so good at saving it, and this is a tremendous job by the Ganassi guys.
And then they multiplied it by being really quick in the pits.
That's absolutely right. They even actually...
Well, you saw it on side-by-side. Tony Kanaan, when he went around Scott Dixon, clipped his right front wing, and you can see how it's skewed as he comes through the corner. Let's take it back and show you. Right there.
And how it drops down. Now, will that stay for the remaining portion of the race, or will end up affecting the car handling or brake? There it goes.
I'm amazed it didn't snap off.
So am I.
You can't stay out. That is so potentially dangerous. If that fails, that could be catastrophic.
That's James Hinchcliffe, who's joined us here after going out on lap number 1. Let's listen on the radio. Tony Kanaan.
Well, you heard it there. They told him he can go ahead and pass if he wants to. Now, the team is watching our show right now. They're watching the onboard. They can see the wing. It's the first time they've noticed it. Jimmy Vasser on the radio. The team watching closely now, talking about maybe bringing him in to take a look at it and replace it. Tony Kanaan right now. You're watching that wing. He's saying it is. He's going to have
This is a man who had a chance at $1 million if he could have won this race and again at Fontana, because he was our Indianapolis 500 winner, and all because of that one move. It is going to be over.
And James is right. That could be catastrophic if that wing comes off.
That is such a tough call for a team owner to sit there and ask his driver leading the race with that kind of shot to come in. But you got to look after the driver's safety. That is potentially a catastrophic situation.
You saw Will Power go around. Here goes Scott Dixon around, Marco Andretti. And you heard on the radio TK saying, "I'm sorry." Jamie?
And Jimmy Vasser had actually asked Tony, did you hit him? And Tony said no. So they weren't worried about it. You see Marco on the right-hand side going around Dixon. Meanwhile, the 11 of Tony Kanaan makes that trek down pit road, was leading this race. They're going to replace that front wing. Tony Kanaan devastated, saying, "I'm sorry, guys."
So the work continues there. The race continues out on the track. And Will Power, who has 4 laps in hand over Marco Andretti. As Andretti pitted on lap 95, Power pitted on lap 99. If this turns into fuel, Power's got the advantage.
The only way it could come back for him is if they have a yellow at this point.
Well, he's going to lose a lap. Remember, this was underneath green. If they had to have a yellow stop, that might have helped him a little bit, but this is unfortunate.
And here comes Will Power, and that will put Tony a lap down. Now he'll have fresher tires. He may be able to get back on the lead lap. Then he needs an early let-up. Now he's letting Marco Andretti go by because he's not up to full song.
And Marco Andretti goes for the lead.
Slingshot and gets it done.
And we talked about that before. You cannot let people go by without knowing what's going to follow.
And the crowd here in Pocono, again, heavily in favor of Marco Andretti, and they erupted. Scott Dixon goes under. So Tony Kanaan is now dropped all the way back.
And this is what we
4 cars from getting back on the lead lap.
This is what we talked about earlier with that high line not being as grippy here and the cars coming out of the pits. Will would have had to have lifted there. That gave Marco the run there. But I got to say, huge credit to Tony for getting out of the way there, because he was only just off the lead lap. He could have maybe got that back, but he realized it was a race for the win going on, and he had taken himself out of that. So big credit to him.
I totally agree.
There you see TK going through the corner. So right now it's Andretti with a 0.6 of a second lead over Will Power. Then Scott Dixon in 3rd with the first Honda. Pagano with a Honda in 4th. Castro Neves rounds out your top 5 with the 3rd Chevy in the top 5.
And the 3-time Indy 500 winner, Franchitti, is in 7th.
Dario has had a good run today after a huge disappointment throughout the weekend. There you see Simon Pagano streaking through. Been very consistent today in that blue and white number 77. You heard Jamie talk about his experience at Pikes Peak. All the way up to 14,110 feet. And the air gets mighty thin up there, he said.
Have you ever driven up there?
Oh, yeah.
I drove up there in a road car. I wouldn't go up there at speed for nothing.
Well, you drive a van all the time. I shouldn't have a problem with that.
It's not a Honda-powered van like that one was.
Yeah, but you're comfortable in one of those big vans. That's your sort of car, isn't it?
All right, a reminder as James Hinchcliffe is going to be heading to his hometown next weekend as the IndyCar Series heads for Toronto. Doubleheader weekend, Saturday and Sunday, both at 3 Eastern and both on the NBC Sports Network. Standing start on Saturday. That's going to be fun. Get Hinch's idea on that. And there's next Sunday as well. What do you think about that standing start next week in your hometown?
Fundamentally, I love standing starts. I think it's cool to put a little bit more in the driver's control. The only problem is we haven't had a whole lot of time to practice them. Not even just getting off the line, but the whole procedure of it all. And I hope we can go there and make ourselves look good. But it's definitely going to be exciting seeing 20-something Indy cars sat there sitting on the rev limiter, you know, about to let it all go.
Just go full throttle, drop the clutch, just dump it and see what happens.
Tons of smoke. It'll look cool. Spoken very fast.
Spoken from a guy I've seen in Formula One do that and not make it to turn one.
It was a lot of fun.
Rick, talk to us.
They've been talking to Marco about the fuel, making the point that he's got to be careful out there. This is going to reach a point with this race where they've got to stretch it as far as they possibly can. He's got about another 10 laps or so on fuel if he goes the normal pace, which wouldn't be enough to make it the rest of the way, all the way with just that stop. So they might have to do another one if they're not careful. So he's got to stretch this fuel out as far as he possibly can.
So, Scott, the options they have now for running on fuel settings are getting more limited. They're going to have to make it to that next window, otherwise have to stop again.
Well, if he's doing 10 laps, I'm calculating probably just about 3 or 4 laps short. But as you know, James, and you can tell it's better than anything, you can turn around and change that and get better fuel mileage. It's going to be an interesting feat to see if you can get that done.
Yeah, it is interesting, but there's only so much you can do in the long laps here, make it harder.
Well, James Hinchcliffe, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I know this is not where you wanted to spend your Sunday afternoon.
Nothing personal.
Good luck next week in Toronto. Marco Andretti out in front. He's led 15 races since the start of 2010. 12 have been on the ovals. He's led 83 laps today. Can he win in his home track? The race is on at Pocono. That is the margin between first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, as you have got Marco Andretti hanging on against Will Power. And then in third is Scott Dixon. Pagenaud in fourth. Helio Castroneves, the points leader, in fifth. And there may be something going on in that 25 car because the team has control of our onboard cameras, and they need to save power. They have disconnected our onboard camera, so we don't know for sure. But right now, he's got more than one power issue. The other one's right behind him.
He's got Will Power behind him, and he's got an electrical power issue. It definitely isn't an engine issue.
And how about Scott Dixon leading the Honda contingent with Simon Pagenaud right behind him in third and fourth? And look at here we go. I don't think so. I think he just wants to make him.
I think he's aggravating him. I think so.
This is a bicycle race.
Make the guy in front do all the work and just let him burn as much fuel as he can and you get your advantage at the end.
Or is he letting them know that I can go past you?
And the thing. And yeah. Well, he needs 4.6.
And they know that 4.2 is what these guys were telling me that they could do. 4.3 in a stretch. If you're asking for a 4.6, there's no tanker refueling your tank from up above.
Every lap that you do, you have less and less options on ways to pick up fuel.
Yeah, but look at here right now. Power's in front, Dixon's in second,
and
Marco's going back to third.
So the issues continue for Marco Andretti, leading laps in all these races, but not getting the win as of yet. He's not out of this one, but it's not looking as good as it did just a few laps ago. Now, Will Power also trying to get a win on the oval for the first time since Texas in that race number 2 when they did the doubleheaders. Rick, you've got more?
Well, an interesting thing happened earlier in the race. Remember when they had the problem with Ryan Hunter-Reay? Will Power was just about to pit, but he couldn't because they closed the pits. As a result, he was forced to stay out for a little bit longer. He didn't have to come in first class for fuel. As a result, he came in 4 laps later on his last pit stop than Marco Andretti. He can go just a little bit farther. The question is it far enough?
Well, and the guy right behind him, Scott Dixon, came in at lap 100. Power pitted on lap 99. So those two getting the best fuel mileage. Then it was lap 95 for third place Marco Andretti, as you can see on our screen. And then on the far right of your screen, that is Simon Pagenaud in fourth.
I think the magical number, Scott, that you have to get to is 30 laps to go. If you can get to 30 laps to go, you go full power, and you just drive it like you stole it.
So for Dixon, then, he should be able to go to lap 130 and then just take that next fuel stop and make it to the end. But we'll have to see the downforce level on these cars and what type of fuel mileage. Edwards to Simon Pagenaud just saying,
Charlie Kimball makes the move and takes the position. So Charlie Kimball, who has been lurking in the middle of the field most of the day, all of a sudden coming to life.
But he's been quick the whole time that we've been here. The first day of practice, he was leading the speeds at one point.
Kimball in that number 83, his best finish was in Detroit, where he had a 7th and a 4th earlier in the year at Barber on the road courses. Last time out, he was 12th. Let's get an update from Vince.
Well, and he's had a little bit more understeer this run than what he's had before. But as you said, Marty, he has certainly been making his way toward the front a little bit at a time. Each run seems to be going a little bit better. They worked on race setup almost exclusively during practice and testing here, and it's paying off for him today.
We've got the telemetry on him. You saw him work up between 5th and 6th gear. As there he is, trying to track down Marco Andretti.
And he had understeer through that turn because he had understeer by himself, and when he got behind traffic, he really had to lift. So we'll have to see if that's going to be a continuous problem for him. That will just kill his speed coming out of the turn, and then he'll have people passing him going down the street. Now, we're looking at Kimball and Pagenaud, and Pagenaud's 3 laps behind Kimball as far as the fuel number. cars are concerned. So he's probably got the fuel trim back even further, making less horsepower, and that's probably why he got passed down the straight so easily from Charlie.
When you have understeer, you can always push the car harder. When the car is loose, you reach that limit and you can't overstep it. And at this point in the race, even though the tire, the track is a little bit greasy, it's often more comfortable to have a little bit of push inside of the car. And he has definitely made use of it. There we have a Chevy Honda for the first 4.
You know, and has Marco Andretti done something smart here by sitting back in traffic, turning back the fuel knob, making some fuel mileage, because he was going to have to come in for a 2-lap splash.
And here he is. He's in the pits. So now, with 34 laps to go, Rick, this is outside what we've seen as far as some of these teams being able to go.
Well, that's right. This is the question. Can they stop now and go the rest of the way? The team has told them they think that they can do it. But the problem is, if they send them out on a fuel strategy, are they going to be able to go fast enough to be able to fight off any problem? Now, the key here is they've got to do it cleanly, as I said. See the guy in the green? That was Hinchcliffe's car. They brought him in. Nice, clean stop. Now he's got to do it as smoothly as possible.
Between his second and third stint, he made 34 laps. The first was a 32-lap run. So he's going to be right on that edge, depending on how much he uses that right foot.
And that's not only the right foot, but if he gives himself more power, which he might need to get back in the lead, he can burn more fuel, so he has a lot of options inside of the car.
Elio Castroneves on pit lane. Rick?
Elio Castroneves brings it in. Once again, overall very happy with it. They're talking about a very minor change. Yes, going to make a minor change to the front wing. Not a perfect stop in terms of the, well, 8.3 seconds. You can't do much better than that.
Well, the only one we really saw that was absolutely better, and that was the 7.7 of Scott Dixon that ended up giving him the lead momentarily. He did a nice job. Looks like Simon Pagenaud has peeled off, and he is heading towards pit lane as well. Jamie?
And Rob Edwards asked him about 3 laps ago, how's the car? Are we going to need to change anything? He said, I'm good. I put it to the end. The car's been great all day. Made 1 change in 3 stops. So we're going to continue that streak of good pit stops here. 4 sticker tires. They'll fill them up with Sunoco fuel. They hold them up later.
Will Power just keeps on munching up miles, and he's well past the window of what he needs when he stops for fuel, so he can go full throttle as fast as he can all the way to the end, and that is an advantage in his hands. And Kimball is second.
Here comes Will. And here comes Will Power. So Will, with 31 to go, we know he can go 31. And Rick, you've got another customer coming your way.
Yeah, Will Power yesterday morning had problems in the very first session. He got very few laps in, but it has gone so much smoother this time than it did yesterday. They're going to bring him in. He managed to do no changes at all. The goal here to do it as quickly and cleanly as possible, keeping an eye on each of the 4 tires. A typical Penske stop. All the tires are on, waiting for the Sunoco fuel.
And Carpenter also making a stop there, as is Justin Wilson further back. As Simona Di Silvestro also coming off of pit road as well.
Now Will's got to make up all the time he can on those cold tires. It's really difficult, Marty, when you go out the pits to go through that turn 1 as fast as you can, because every foot makes a difference.
So there is Charlie Kimball, as he is now shown as your race leader, as he is out in front. It's been 31 laps since he last pitted. There is Marco Andretti, Simon Pagenaud, and it looks like Scott Dixon is in. Rick?
That's right, Scott Dixon once again having changed that engine. His goal is to make it nice and smooth the whole way. One of the keys for them not to be caught up in traffic this whole race, so that they can smoothly get around each lap, and it's worked for him so far.
29 laps to go. You see that Dixon gets out in front of this group that's heading down the front straightaway.
Dixon has got to go as fast as he can and not even lose half a foot, because he's right back in the front of the group.
Kimball and Franchitti are in, Vince.
It's been a great effort for Charlie Kimball so far today. No changes on the car. Now there they make a lane change. Front wing change. As is Dario Franchitti a little further back up pit lane.
Also, we can tell you Ryan Hunter-Reay is in. Updating him, he's 23 laps down as these two come out side by side. They can go back to racing right there as they have crossed the line. Watch how high you go, because here comes the fast cars up at speed.
Well, actually, with Franchitti being back there, it probably is going to make Dixon have to take the high line, but he does get around. He'll have a good run right now on Charlie.
And Kimball gets out in front of Dixon. So Kimball holds the lead right now. And here comes the battle for the race lead.
And Dixon's not going to hang around.
He knows he wants to put that space in between him and Power.
Now what he needs is Kimball to have maybe 1 or 2 corners not as fast as he can, so he can break away. All you need is like 30 or 40 feet, and have the group behind you just fight amongst themselves, because we've seen, Scott, every time you dive in, here comes another one.
Here's Power taking a look underneath. Can't get it done.
Man, I thought he would have got that done, getting the draft and having the Chevrolet Power, but great job for Charlie Kimball.
Look how far he dropped back. Dario Franchitti, who, yes, is running in 4th place, folks, after a horrible qualifying. And how about Leahy in 3rd place? Ganassi running 1, 2, 3. When's the last time we said that?
I would have lost that bet this morning on that one.
IndyCar Series racing at Pocono Raceway, late stages of the race, lap 138 of 160. And Chip Ganassi has cars running 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Chip, I know it's been a tough season in many accounts, but how good does it feel to see your cars running 1, 2, 3?
Well, it feels really good, Vince. I mean, there's obviously a long way to go yet, and it's certainly nice to see him 1, 2, 3 up there right now.
One of the 3 any stronger than the other at this stage?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just a matter of everybody's out there trying to get into the race. We'll see. I mean, we certainly know where we are.
That's for sure. Thanks, Jim.
Marty, to give you an idea, between Team Penske and Chip Ganassi's team, they've led only 22% of the laps this season. This time last year, they had led 74%. And the man that's up front, Scott Dixon, well, he led 1 lap at this year's Indy 500, and that's the only lap he led all season long until today, and he's just clicked off his 18th lap led here. What a difference.
He's leading the right ones here, and he seems to have made his way, Scott, through the field very methodically, and now he's got a stranglehold on it, and all he has to do is keep running speeds at the same he's doing now without having any trouble. I don't think he has a fuel issue.
Well, you know, it's interesting because all those guys up front, the Honda power plants are turning laps at 215. And actually, Will Power just started to go 216. He was a little slower as we see Tony Kanaan coming in and getting a quick pit stop, but he is in jeopardy of going down the lap now.
Yeah, Jamie, what looked so promising for the $1 million opportunity has gone away. What happened there?
Yes, he was short of time there. He had to come down here and hit one more time. But remember, he was leading this race past Scott Dixon, clipped him with the front wing, and you see Scott Dixon passes him. It's Tony Kanaan a lap down. Heartbreaking day for the 11 team.
Just in case you weren't with us back in lap 107, Tony was going for the pass, and he clips his wing. And this,
see how much it bends. And actually, Tony did not even know. The team had to tell him that he actually had hit the back of Scott Dixon. And how ironic is it now for Tony Kanaan to come out and he's gone a lap down, and the guy who's trying to pass is now leading.
We have 15 cars now on the lead lap as Tony is 16. And look at this, side by side, Pagano pressuring Dario Franchitti for 3rd.
Interesting to hear Chip Ganassi say we do not want to see it yellow. The reason he says that is because the Chevys, who don't look like they're going to be able to do great fuel mileage right now, if underneath a yellow and a restart, we believe Chevy would have a little bit more power than the Hondas, and then it would be a race for horsepower.
Last lap, Marco Andretti was the fastest, but he is running in 6th, 3.5 seconds back.
Only thing that could save him if everybody else runs out of fuel, because I think he's too far back, and he just doesn't have that speed at this point in the race to be able to pass all these cars. They're all doing, like Scott said, 215, 216.
I think he's still fuel trimmed back because, you know, he's had to stop well before the other guys, and I think he's trying to make the race without having to stop one more time for a splash of fuel.
Well, you will not beat anybody the way Scott Dixon can save fuel. As you heard, if you were with us when James Hinchcliffe joined us, he is considered the master at what they call making fuel.
And that is just a question of knowing your speed and being good on the throttle pedal. He is excellent at that.
All right, be more specific, though, because sometimes people don't understand. How can you be that good on the throttle pedal?
You have to know what is the capacity of the car speed-wise in the middle of the corner, and not rush up to it, take your foot all the way up, but try to keep the car rolling and be as efficient as you can on that throttle. Every time you push the throttle down, you're using burning more fuel. So if you see traffic ahead, come out of it before.
And efficient on the pedals, what I always tell people that I used to do, and I was told by a very experienced driver in Europe, squeeze the pedal as if you had a hard-boiled egg in between your foot and the pedal, and you don't want to crack the outside of the egg. Squeeze it down slowly because you're just going up and down the throttle smoothly, so you're not abusing the throttle and getting the fuel squirting in the chambers too quick.
Right now, Dixon has a replay what we had before, except he's a lap down.
Yep.
I don't think Scott Dixon wants to have Kanaan dive bombing him turning into corners right now.
There's Marco Andretti. Let's listen in on the radio.
Wow.
That's what I was saying. Remember, he has to go that speed he's going now.
The bad news is he isn't telling him what the Hondas are doing up front.
Or that the Hondas don't have to stop, yeah.
That is such a blow in the gut. For the race that Marco has had, that is such a blow in the gut to know that he doesn't have a chance.
Whoa, and there is Tony Kanaan getting his lap back, so that puts him at the tail end of the lead lap. And if he could get a yellow... And they told Tony, you got all the fuel you need, so he is going to hammer down and try and make up as much ground. But he will need a yellow to get some power.
A smart race car driver and Scott Dixon not going to challenge. He's going to let him go past. Only 14 laps left to go. He knows exactly the race is in his control.
But he had to control where Kanaan passed him, because if Kanaan would have crowded him and pushed him up into the gray area, he could have had an accident. So he's the one that let him go by. And now the only way that Kanaan can come back in the race is if we have a yellow. And you can't count on yellows. What you can count on is Dixon being able to rip off these laps exactly like he's doing lap after lap after lap.
That car in the middle is Scott Dixon, your race leader. He has now led 25 laps. Marco Andretti's led the most, 88, but he is running in 6th. That is Scott's wife, Emma, looking on, hoping that Scott can bring home the win today. Stay with us, 13 laps to go. You saw that side-by-side Marco Andretti as Scott Dixon continues to lead laps. Andretti has slipped all the way back to 9th because he has to save fuel. He's had to get out of the throttle. And what was so promising a day has now turned into potentially another disappointment for 26-year-old Marco. But right now, Scott Dixon may be having his best day of the 2013 season. But there is some lap traffic in front of him. That's Tony Kanaan trying to get around the lap vehicle. Tony's at the tail end of the lead lap, guys.
This is playing perfectly into Kimball's hands right now, because if Kanaan cannot get by the car in front of him, Scott has to wait till that road opens up. And right now, Kimball could actually gain all of the distance he's lost over the last 3 laps and 2 corners. He's already cut it down by half.
That is Pippa Mann in front of Tony Kanaan. Now Kanaan clears.
That's 1.
So now Dixon is up next.
Kimball is breathing down his neck.
There's the gap between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Dixon, Kimball, and Frank Keating. While this goes on, and watch out, because Kimball's going to take a look on the race lead, and he's going to get it. And it made it look easy.
Dixon underneath Pippa Mann.
I'm sorry.
Dixon underneath Pippa Mann. Now it's time for Charlie Kimball to try to go underneath Pippa so he can then set his sights ahead to Scott Dixon. That cost Charlie a little bit of time there.
Now that gap is where it was 3 laps ago. And we only have 7 laps to go.
And there is Frank Keating now trying to get around Pippa Mann. Let's check in with Rick DeBrule.
Well, we talked about the fact that the drivers here have no IndyCar experience in this track. Only Frank Keating drove here at all. But this guy right here on the left, you see, Mike Hall, the strategist for Scott Dixon, he has experience here. Back in 1989, the last IndyCar race, he was the strategist, the team manager for Bernard Jourdain. Now, is that helping today? No, but at least he knows his way around this place.
Scott Dixon, you see, he's led 32 laps today. They mentioned he led only 1 the entire 2013 season coming in.
And these guys are probably flat out right now. Both Dixon and Charlie Kimball. And it really is probably coming down to, Eddie, the downforce level on the cars. How much downforce level is on it? Too much? And maybe the car's got too much grip. You can't go down the straightaway quick enough. And maybe that's what the situation right now is with Charlie Kimball, because he doesn't seem to be able to make up any time
on Scott Dixon, who's just ahead of him.
It's really ironic because Kanaan was the guy that almost ran into the back of him trying to pass him, and Kanaan is now his bodyguard who's opening up all the traffic in front of him, and it really is a good position to be in. So his best buddy on the track right now is Tony Kanaan, who was bitterly disappointed because he's not going to get that Triple Crown.
I was trying to think back to the last sweep by a team. I think it's 2005 in St. Petersburg when Andretti Green Racing at the time swept the top 4 positions at St. Petersburg. Right now, Chip Ganassi's cars are running 1, 2, and 3 here with Dixon, Kimball, and Franchitti, and now just 4 laps to go here at Pocono.
I have to tell you, when we arrived the other day, all the drivers were, I almost want to say, crying that they were just, you know, we're talking a small amount of horsepower down from Chevy. We have no chance here, not an opportunity to win because this is a horsepower track. This has become a strategy track, and Ganassi has done a great job.
They played it perfectly.
And our crack statistician, Russ Thompson, has pointed out that in 2011 at Sonoma, Team Penske went 1, 2, 3. So those are the last 2 times that it has happened, back in 05 and 2011. Right now, here's what the points would look like. Castroneves with 25 in hand over Hunter-Reay. And basically, Marco's right back where he started this race, and at 53, that's races are running out.
But, you know, 25 miles away, he lives just down the road as power now goes around Pagenaud, and you think about the momentum coming in here, fastest during the practice sessions, fastest in qualifying. Everybody knew he was the guy to beat. Strategy-wise, you know, makes me wonder if leading all those laps, Eddie, you just consume too much fuel.
I could not criticize one thing that Marco did today. Maybe if they'd have had him in a different strategy, they should just executed what they told him to execute. All the driver can do is drive his car as fast as it will go, and he follow what they tell him.
And he did it flawlessly.
Will Power, you see, getting around Pippaman. So Power now moves into 4th as he got around Pagenaud. Newgarden running in 6th, guys. That would be a career best for Mr. Josef Newgarden on the ovals.
And 6th around this place is nothing to sneeze at. It's quite an accomplishment. A very difficult and fast racetrack.
And we tell you, Newgarden has moved up to 5th as he has gotten around Simon Pagenaud. So here is the story. 1, 2, 3, as it is. Chip Ganassi's cars, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Franchitti starting to have a little bit of luck there, and ended up, you can tell his car's not working well because he got out of the gas.
You heard it, the white flag is out. It'll be the 200th win for Honda. And it's going to be a sweep for Honda in the top 3 spots unless something drastic happens in this last lap. And we'll have another new winner for the year. That'll be 8 different winners in 11 races. Look at Emma. She is thrilled, and rightfully so.
Ganassi is back on the map.
This has definitely got to be a boost.
Because now Dixon's having problems because Kanaan's just up ahead. He's probably getting disturbed there. Can't keep the momentum in the turns.
Well, they're coming down to the wire, and here it is. Checkered flag is out for the 30th time in his career. Scott Dixon gets the win. Kimball 2nd. Franchitti completes the sweep, and the celebration begins.
Congratulations to Honda on their 200th victory in IndyCar racing.
How about Ganassi not only getting his first win, but the first time he gets a win, he has all 3 cars on the podium.
And I remember talking to Barry Wanzer yesterday, and he was telling you and me, Eddie, that this team has not gotten down. We're not beating each other up. We're supporting each other, and we're going to turn it around. And they just did.
And did they ever? And I'm sure there's a big smile on Chip Ganassi's face right now because he's got his season right back on track.
Dixon's 9th consecutive year with a win. That's the 3-wide formation. And Rick, I think you've got a very happy wife.
Oh, indeed, indeed. Emma said, you just said it feels like the 500. Why?
God, I just think it's just been a tough season so far for everybody, you know, but it's come together today, and it did feel like the 500. We were just willing that car around because we've had so much bad luck. Like me and Roger, the head of Honda, we were just like, oh God, I can't even look to the last lap because, you know, it's just not really happened for us this season. So
what is this going to mean to Scott?
Oh my God, it's going to be hopefully the end of a, you know, bad luck run. So it's going to be huge to him. I'm so happy.
All right, Emma, we got to get down to victory circle.
Thank you so much.
So there is Scott making his way into victory lane here at Pocono Raceway. The first time in 24 years the open wheels cars have returned to this 2.5-mile story track and put on a heck of a good show.
What an incredible season this has been. I am very pleased for Ganassi.
He's going over to Dario, now to Charlie Kimball. He's one happy car owner.
What a great run for Kimball. Now, this is a very hard track. Nobody had the experience here, and he really brought it through. Scott didn't.
Behind those three, it was Will Power, Josef Newgarden. Let's set it down to Vince.
Well, Chip, not only the 100th win for Target, but the first time ever a Ganassi team has finished 1, 2, 3 in any form of racing. How big a day is it for you today?
Pretty big, Vince, I'll tell you. I got coming in here this morning late from last night in Daytona. I had no idea we'd finish 1, 2, 3. I'll tell you, I was just hoping for a decent finish today. And I want to thank everybody that's involved in this team for pulling this off today. Everybody from Honda, our guys in the shop, and everybody across all our teams contributed to this today. It's nice.
Well documented throughout the course of the season, the struggles that the team has had. You have set the bar high for yourself, and it's been a difficult season. What's today mean for Target Chip Ganassi Racing?
Well, hopefully we turn the corner.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And there is Marco Andretti. I think he's run out of fuel.
We suspected as much, and that's what he was doing when he was out there, just running as hard as we could. I'm sure the fuel trim was set at a pace where he could make it to the end. And this is not a good feeling in his hometown race.
But he should not be down on himself. He drove as well as anybody could be expected and led a lot of laps.
He finishes in 10th place, and as you said, a long walk. Gives you an idea just how far it is to victory lane in more ways than one. So there is Scott Dixon, a lot happier than Marco Andretti. Rick?
Scott Dixon, I know we were talking a lot this weekend. I think he's going to be the most shocked guy in Victory Circle today. He can't even wait to get over here and do this interview. He's so excited about it. I have to mention, not only is it the first 1, 2, 3 for Chip Ganassi Racing, it's also the 100th win for Target. Get down here, Scott. Let's talk about this. We just talked to Emma. She said this felt like an Indy 500 victory.
Yeah, it was, you know, I just said to Chip, I said going into this morning, I was not thinking we could win. So, you know, the team definitely hasn't given up. You know, you got to hand it to Honda as well. You know, I think fuel mileage was a big key today. And we still had speed up front, you know, without having to save all the time. So, I don't know what to say. It's the 100th team victory for Target as well, which is fantastic. And just so happy, you know, love this place. Pocono, the fans, everybody's been fantastic. So it's great to be back. It's been a long drought, man, almost a year. So it's fantastic to be back in Winner's Circle.
You know, I asked Emma, what is this going to mean to Scott? I'm asking you, what does this mean after that drought?
It means a lot. You know, I think when, you know, there's no doubt that I think, you know, the Honda teams have kind of been the underdogs, you know, recently. And, you know, the start of the year we had some good runs, and you know, Sato and you know, a few other guys sort of got some victories, but you know, we've been struggling a little bit. So, you know, for us to get back in, we had our own problems as a team, you know, and to get a 1, 2, 3, you know, Charlie second, Dario third. We all started towards the back, so it was a fantastic day.
I think the tricky triangle is now Scott Dixon's favorite oval.
And a kiss from wife Anna and a celebration. And it feels just like it is a big weight off of everybody's shoulder.
Well, it absolutely is. And you know, some of these guys go into a doubleheader next weekend on Saturday, Sunday. It gives the team, the crew guys that are working all these long hours, just more energy to go back into the shop and get things ready in the next 2 days before that truck leaves. Big team effort.
Well, since we only had 2 cautions, we've got some extra time, so don't go anywhere because we got a lot of people we're going to catch up with as there's the celebration as the victory for Scott Dixon. We'll be back after a word from your ABC stations.